Yes, the clause keeping Jonathan Kuminga hostage is the team option the Warriors insist on putting in his new contract. As of mid-September 2025, Golden State's reported proposal is 3 years, $75.2 million with the final season controlled by the team. Kuminga's camp reads that single line as the difference between being treated like a cornerstone and being packaged as a trade chip. It's not just emotion, it's leverage wired into the NBA's collective bargaining rules. The same dollars can feel like security or a cage depending on who holds the switch. Most fans think this is just about money. Split the difference, shake hands, and move on. The reality is that the option type decides who owns the next 2 summers, how other teams value Kuminga at the trade deadline, and whether he has a say if the franchise tries to move him. A team option keeps him cheaper, more flexible, and more flippable. A player option shifts control to Kuminga, letting him choose when to hit free agency and shrinking his rental value for clubs afraid he'll walk. That's why identical totals can carry opposite meanings. Here's the plan. We're going to explain exactly how a team option works under the CBA and why it supercharges front office leverage. Then we'll break down why Golden State is reportedly dug in. Hint, it aligns with a 2027 flexibility window and a future star swing. Finally, we'll map the timeline, the offers and counters, the October 1st qualifying offer pressure point, and the real scenarios on the table. Along the way, we'll separate facts from analysis, tie claims to on-record dates, and use the CBA's option language, cap math, and trade mechanics to decode what's actually at stake. Start with the why from Golden State's side. If you're targeting a 2027 splash, you want contracts you can toggle. The Warriors' books around that summer are lighter than in recent years, with several aging deals rolling off and only a handful of mid-tier commitments projected. A team option sitting at the end of Kuminga's new deal gives the front office a yes/no switch a full year in advance. If a superstar chase materializes in 2027, they can decline the option to open room or exercise it to keep a tradable mid-size slot that fits matching rules. If no star is available, they can still exercise it and retain a productive two-way forward on a no number. It's optionality over certainty, and it's by design. Now the rule itself. Under the current CBA, a team option can add 1 additional season that must be decided by a league-set exercise deadline, and that option year keeps the prior season's terms largely intact while bumping salary at least to the required minimum. That makes the contract a cleaner asset. Until the team flips the switch, the deal behaves like a short, controllable slot that other front offices love to acquire because it slots perfectly into trade matching. Players, understandably, hate that dynamic. The option reduces security and increases portability. From a capologist perspective, a team option is a Swiss Army knife. You can hold it, move it, or decline it without new negotiations. Flip the switch to a player option, and the math changes. A player option gives Kuminga agency over the timing of his free agency. That scares some buyers at the deadline because they don't want to part with picks for a possible short-term rental. It also means Kuminga can align his market entry with a free agent class he prefers, rather than being dragged into a year that serves the team's calendar. His camp is reportedly willing to trade a bit of annual value for that control, because control is the actual currency. For a 22-year-old wing still ascending, the ability to pick his summer matters more than squeezing the final million out of year 3. There's also the 1-year path. If Kuminga signs the qualifying offer, roughly $7.9 million, he becomes a restricted free agent who re-ups for a single season and then reaches unrestricted free agency in 2026. That route comes with an important wrinkle. A player on a 1-year deal after restricted free agency gets veto power over trades for that season unless he waives it. That veto can be used as leverage to avoid undesired destinations, or, if he chooses, trade it away as part of a mutually beneficial move. From the player's perspective, the 1-year path is a clean runway. From the team's perspective, it introduces real risk of losing the asset for nothing and reduces the range of trade partners. The timeline isn't vague. Negotiations have been active into the week of September 15th to 16th, with reporting of a stalemate. One offer circulating in the ecosystem. 3 years, $75.2 million with a team option in the final season. Another framework discussed. 3 years and a smaller fully guaranteed total with no options. Kuminga's camp prefers either the player option attached to the larger total or a clean guarantee on the shorter one. There's also a creative idea for a one-year enhanced deal. Think above the qualifying offer. That preserves Golden State's deadline flexibility if both sides agree to waive veto mechanics while giving Kuminga a free agency runway in 2026. Different numbers, same battle. Who gets the switch? So why the distrust? Because options declare intent. When a team insists on a team option for a young core piece, it signals to the player that the organization values flexibility over commitment. In a vacuum, that's just smart business. In a locker room, it can feel like a label: mid-tier trade slot today, potential foe expiring tomorrow. If a coach's faith in a player's role has wavered at times while the front office pushes for an option that makes him easiest to move, the player will read that as a plan to keep him on the shelf until the right package appears. Even if the organization denies it, the clause keeps telling the same story. Trade mechanics make the signal louder. A mid-sized salary with a team option attached is catnip for deadline construction. It's large enough to combine with other deals under matching rules, but clean enough to be absorbed or flipped. If the option is exercised in June, the player becomes a controlled asset through the coming season. If it's declined, he's off the books and the team gains flexibility. Compare that to a player option. Acquiring teams worry he'll walk, the offer price drops. Compare it to a fully guaranteed 3-year deal. The acquiring team must truly want the player, not just the slot. With a team option, the slot itself has standalone value. Let's model the scenarios. Scenario 1. 3 years, around $75 million with a team option. The Warriors keep the switch. They can exercise or decline in summer 2027 based on the star market, and they retain a tradable mid-tier slot that keeps their options open. Scenario 2. 3 years, around the mid-$50s, fully guaranteed, no options. Golden State loses the toggle but gains cost certainty, and Kuminga gets security, plus a clean exit at the end. Scenario 3. 2 years plus a player option. Kuminga controls the critical 2027 summer, decreasing rental value for buyers but maximizing his agency. Scenario 4. A 1-year deal. Either the qualifying offer or a richer 1 year, giving him unrestricted free agency in 2026 and, by default, veto power on trades unless he waives it. Each scenario prices control differently. Dollars are just how the control gets sold. The calendar matters. The qualifying offer deadline usually hits October 1st unless extended by agreement, which means both sides feel real pressure before camp. If Kuminga signs the QO, he shifts leverage to himself during the season. Trade talks become a negotiation with him, not just with his team. If he doesn't, the Warriors maintain matching rights and keep hunting structures that fit their 2027 thesis. Either way, the clock is leverage. That's why these fights often resolve just before or just after camps open, when the heat is highest and the alternatives are most vivid. We should also talk risk. The 1-year route is powerful for control but carries injury and variance risk. Betting on yourself can pay off massively. It can also backfire if minutes dip, if a role changes, or if an untimely injury hits. History shows examples both directions. On the team option side, the team faces reputational risk. Agents and stars remember how franchises treat their own. If Golden State's message to a former lottery pick who just had his best season is "We want you, unless we need the slot," that can complicate future pitches. In a star market, perception is part of the price. Are there compromises beyond the obvious? One is a higher average annual value in exchange for the team option, a control tax that pays Kuminga more now for giving up the switch later. Another is replacing the team option with a fully guaranteed 3rd year, but adding early guarantee trigger dates or partial guarantees that creates some flexibility without the binary yes/no power. Bonuses tied to games played or team success can sweeten the pot without conceding the option. None of these are perfect. All of them acknowledge that the true negotiation is about power rather than pennies. There's an on-court lens, too. Kuminga's growth as a downhill scorer and switchable defender makes him valuable in virtually any scheme. But his value is maximized by context, spacing around him, a defined usage lane, and trust to play through mistakes. If he believes the clause signals a willingness to ship him out the second a bigger fish bites, he'll read his role as temporary. That affects buy-in. Conversely, If the team believes a player wants a player option mainly to choose his market, they'll see him as less of a long-term pillar. That affects deployment. Contract architecture bleeds into rotations, and rotations bleed back into negotiations. There's also the poison pill footnote that fans sometimes confuse with this situation. The poison pill complication typically applies when a player signs a rookie scale extension that hasn't started yet and then gets traded. It makes matching salaries awkward. That's not the case here. Kuminga is negotiating a new deal that starts immediately, so the classic poison pill mechanics aren't the main constraint. The real engine of leverage is the option type, not the arithmetic trick. Once you remove that confusion, the standoff becomes easier to read. It's not can they afford him, it's who decides his path. So why does this one clause fuel so much distrust? Because it declares intent in plain language. A team option says, "We need you unless we need the slot." A player option says, "I'm here unless I choose my own market." Money can say love, options say power. Golden State appears to be protecting 2027 optionality and deadline flexibility. Kuminga is protecting the right to choose his moment and destination. Both strategies make sense. They just can't both win at the same time. Here's the bottom line. If the Warriors cave on the clause and grant either a player option or a shorter, fully guaranteed deal, they're choosing the person over the plan and accepting some risk to their 2027 thesis. If Kuminga caves and accepts the team option, he's choosing near-term security and a higher AAV over long-term control, with a higher probability of being moved on the team schedule. If neither blinks, the one-year path becomes the pressure valve, handing the player trade veto power during the season and handing the team the fear of losing him for nothing. In a league where leverage decides everything, a quiet option rule in the CBA may decide where Jonathan Kuminga plays for the next 3 years, and whether the Warriors are buyers or dreamers when the 2027 summer arrives.